Is it possible you'd come out ahead financially had you kept the Ocean? No, and we'll get into that. But wasn't it the core of your content and viewer interest? Yes, it was, but I can still report on Fisker. And if you did this, you might miss out on something really important, but I don't blame you for judging. That's fair. I'm not an owner looking for information. It's just you can't look away from a train wreck, and you had yourself a nice little train wreck. You want to talk about a train wreck? How about the Fisker app never even got my VIN number correct? I don't have a problem showing you this VIN number because it's not the VIN number for this car. You can verify that on C. Harper's website. It's for sale. Oh, and if you sell your Ocean, you can't factory reset it because that button doesn't exist, even though when you go to the manual, it says it's right here, but we all know that the only thing on that screen is the software version. And that's not even what we're here to talk about today. And if you were about to click off this video and make an angry comment about how I don't own an Ocean anymore and I shouldn't talk about it, you're gonna miss a lot of information that owners really need to know. Feel free though, I'm sure you'll feel better about yourself afterwards, and I appreciate your comment. And if you think you're the only one doing this, I'm pretty sure has at least 2 or 3 accounts that she comments on here regularly. They're personal attacks about my family and the way I look, and all kinds of other things. But you're not alone. And you know I'm not here to waste your time. So here are 10 things the mismanagement and horrible CEO and CFO behavior have left behind. The 10 disastrous realities of Fisker Inc. Number 1 reality is the bag holders. If you recently sold your Ocean, you may have met some of these folks. These are not just people who lost on the Ocean and its shares. We are all those people. I'm talking about those that want to call us weak or pitiful or risk-averse or not early adopters and attack our families, our appearance, and our very existence by actively lying about Fisker the company, the performance and the features of their vehicles, the explicitly documented past, and the completely certain future of the company. And the 3 Ds are their fuel: denial, desperation, and deception. They won't admit they made a mistake. They will die with the lie and are desperate for any microscopic tidbit of information that could be misconstrued as a positive point, and are willing to lie with no limit to anyone regarding the car, the company, the Fisker family, not Fisker fam, the Fisker family, and the future. These are a product of the culture of dishonesty that Henrik Fisker and Gita Gupta Fisker have set up, and they don't just want to be holding the bag at the end. They want you to be holding it too. Fisker executives, Fisker insiders, Fisker knowledge possessors, you know who you are, and it's your fault. Think that's bad? It's just number 1. Number 2 is the greed. The only difference between this and this is that they actually made a physical item that would have the exact same path as the digital pump and dump. Henrik and his family were in at the beginning and got out as early as possible at the very, very tip top. If it's not a pump and dump scheme, I don't know what is. Everything after they got out was just a pure deception for the sake of greed. And in an absolute best case scenario, maybe they get lucky enough to pay off their debt and the car lives on. Henrik didn't get in this to sell you a car. That was his first company. This one was because he needed more money. It's not Bitcoin. And really, it's not pump and dump. It's market manipulation. There, I said it the technical way. Next up is the graveyard. There are no parts. Fisker employees are fixing some customers' cars with parts from the company's vehicle, quote, graveyard. The practice has been ongoing since Fisker began deliveries in June 2023. Fisker technicians have stripped parts off of what have been called donor cars, sitting in the company's facility in La Palma, California. Here's a bag holder. Quote, no parts have been taken off these vehicles for use in customer cars, end quote, the spokesperson said. Quote, for analysis or to retrofit other engineering vehicles, but never customer vehicles, end quote. 10 to 15% of fixes over the past few months, particularly for customers near the company's La Palma site. This is why people in California have been saying, yes, they can get a windshield replacement, but it took a long time. And no one else. Quote, it only happens if there's a dire need for a part, end quote. Technicians are just doing this to help customers. If we have parts available, let's use them. The parts are pulled from a back area of the La Palma site where there is a lineup of pre-production vehicles that some have dubbed the quote-unquote graveyard. 5 sources told Business Insider. Quote, it was a place where you just parked cars that were cannibalized. They were pushed into a space where it wouldn't cause traffic and it became a place to check for parts, end quote. It became evident at some point that you couldn't really put these things back together anymore. The company started taking parts off pre-production and production vehicles when it began deliveries in June 2023, 3 former employees said. One former worker said that parts swapping became a daily occurrence after the vehicle was launched in June 2023. 6 employees said that supervisors were aware that this practice was happening. Once again, employees, I don't blame you, it's not your fault. fault. Quote, every day was a fire drill of what car has this part I need, end quote, a former employee told Business Insider. Quote, the first or second time people were super careful about it, and eventually it was done so often that it became second nature and people weren't asking if they could do it anymore. One former worker compared the process to creating a, quote, Frankenstein car. Two other workers said that technicians were careful to make sure the parts that were going between the vehicles weren't too different, especially if a part was going from a pre-production vehicle into a production car. This is my favorite part. It's unclear whether every customer who received a car with swapped out parts was notified of the switch. When you received service on your car, were you given an invoice? Did you approve all of the changes? And did you sign anything? Let me know down in the comments. Business Insider viewed an email between a Fisker employee and a Fisker Ocean owner offering to fix a car using a part from another Fisker car. The employee had, quote, offered to have the mechanic install parts from another car that are as good as new, end quote. Quote, these trim pieces are being pulled off a brand new vehicle, so they are basically brand new, end quote. That same bag holder declined to comment on the email exchange. Our owner has been waiting for a Fisker-approved repair shop for about 10 weeks. Door handles, windshields, tires, seat sensors, body control modules. This process is not unheard of in the automotive industry. It's typically done as a courtesy for customers to avoid long wait times for parts, or in this case, it's the only option. The process could become murky if the customer is not informed of the swap or a part is not matched perfectly to the vehicle. And that's all I have to say about that. And this has been going on since the very beginning. Remember that. Since the very beginning. Next up are the employees and ex-employees. If you're an ex-employee, you feel cheated. You feel like something was done to you that wasn't fair. You feel like there was a communication that should have been made to you, but wasn't. You're absolutely right. Let me show you an example. I called a customer on Tuesday to collect documentation, and he said he had been ignoring Fisker's calls because the car had stopped functioning and was just sitting there, an $80,000 paperweight, and he was hoping it would get repossessed. He was out of town when I called and went back home specifically to get me the documents I needed. When he arrived, the vehicle had completely died, and he had to call service to come and charge the 12-volt battery. Paid through the nose to get the hood opened and access the battery, and then have it towed somewhere with charging. When he called me to let me know he was sending a photo of the document and what happened, I was so disgusted, I decided to quit on the spot. I could not continue to call these customers who placed their trust in Fisker only to be let down in such a major way, left and right. And that's really bad, but there are still people who work for Fisker, the technicians and all the other peripheral people who still need to be there for this, whatever you want to call it, to continue. And they are forced to lie on a daily basis to people for the sake of their mortgage or their family or their financial well-being. They have to speak in lies and generalizations and omissions, and behind all of it is a certain sense of fear that if they don't, they will be eliminated without notice. And that's part one. Part two comes out in one business day. I've got a new special announcement. It goes out to my patrons and YouTube members first, before the end of this month, if not at the very beginning of June, but probably by the end of this month. And it's consumer-focused and here to help you, just like everything else I do on this channel. If that sounds good, subscribe, and you'll find out what it is. We'll see you on the next one.
Hey! Smash the like button!
Thank you.